Hey everybody, welcome to a live cup of Ray from down here at the world famous Berg's Sports Bar and Grill down here on Central Avenue, just below 16th Street in the Edge, just of St. Petersburg. It's a Friday night, Bucks fans, and aren't we excited? Um, as I said that, I realized it almost sounds like I have a little tongue in cheek. Okay, so this weekend's game against those Atlanta Falcons, week 18 of your NFL season, a loss and you're finished 8-9. A win, you finished 9-8. And of course, the Buccaneers locked up the NFC South last week with that victory over the Carolina Panthers. So a lot of people this week, you go into this week, you're like, oh, well, all we got to do is get ready. The Buccaneers, by winning the NFC South, being the fourth overall seed, their slot, automatically get to host that weekend, that first preseason game next weekend, of course, whether it be the Eagles if they should win or if the Eagles should lose and the 49ers should win. It could be the Niners that finish top overall seed. Not going to come to Tampa Bay. But, of course, Dallas Cowboys could also jump in there. So, really, it looks like it's either going to be the Philadelphia Eagles or Dallas Cowboys. Probably the Dallas Cowboys, the way things sit the way they are. But I would pose all week, my question to you guys and girls here tonight, my very first question is, because that's the first question that really literally happened on a post-game show there last week, of course, over there at Whiskey Wing in Tarpon Springs. Whiskey Wings was, should Tom Brady play? How much should Tom Brady play and why? And I asked you guys and girls that tonight. Also, a couple of things, of course, you guys and girls all saw the news this week with Damar Hamlin. So literally uplifting to hear about the news. They take the breathing tube out. Of course, Damar was breathing on his own, able to communicate and talk. And, your first instincts, because all I could think of, not very first thing Monday night or into Tuesday, because I think the entire NFL world, if not world overall, was in shock. But so many things in our healthcare system that we get to do use these days, so many things that our physicians and our doctors and our surgeons and our specialists have come because of sports medicine. And some of the things that I'm sure that some of the things they were able to do to make this remarkable recovery for, of course, the Bills secondary receiver, Damar Hamlin, who had that terrible injury on Monday night. And the things that the doctors learn from these experiences, it's kind of always, besides the Damar, but what happened to Damar there, some of the things that come with these injuries that some of our best and most biggest professional athletes suffer is that in the end run, it ends up being applied back to us. And so you look at some of the things and hopefully they can continue to apply these things across medicine for the entire world. But such great news to hear Damar's doing so much better. And of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Peyton Hillis family. Of course, Peyton Hillis, after Mike Allstott was a Buccaneer, there's not going to be another Mike Allstott. In fact, the way football is these days with the spread offenses and the big, passing first and things are cyclical, so you figure the NFL will come back around. But always look, not so much for the Buccaneers, but you look across the entire league for another player that had the skill, the impact, and the phenomenal player that, of course, Mike Allstott, the out of Purdue here, but, of course, your Buccaneers fullback / running back / fullback / everything guy was. But I always thought of Peyton Hillis, of course, the former Arkansas Razorback. But when he was at the Cleveland Browns, he really set his mark. Didn't have a sustained career, didn't do it as long as Mike did, didn't quite do it probably as great as Mike did, but similar to Mike Allstott. Of course, we heard this week there in Pensacola, he actually drowned, had an issue with trying to save his own children from drowning, and he had lost consciousness, and he's in the hospital. News there is also good as well. He's recovering. I don't want to waste this guy's any time anymore. I want to bring him in. First of all, I want to make sure my audio is right, but I've been wanting to talk to this cat for a while. Of course, you guys know him, number 98 in your heart, but number 98 in your program, number 1 in your heart, but host of the Big Game Sports Buzz in the Shop on Tuesday nights there with Jay Stoggs. And if I'm talking about the Big Game Sports Buzz, I'm talking about Mr. James Canada, former Buccaneer, former Colt, and also locking it down with our sports coverage these days. My friend James, how are you tonight?
I'm good, Ray. How's it going?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Well, let me ask, can you hear me okay? Because it's pretty loud down here at the world famous Ferg Sports Bar and Grill.
Yeah, I got you.
Brother, you've been locking it down, but you know what? I'm all over the map tonight where to start talking to you about it. But let's go ahead and talk about it, of course, because having been an NFL player yourself, you've been in that room, you've been in that locker room, you've been on that field. What were your first thoughts when you saw what happened there Monday night when the Bills versus the Bengals to Mr. Damar Hamlin?
Man, Ray, it was just a crazy situation because here it is. I'm watching the game. My mom's in town. for the holidays. I had a couple people over, and I saw the play happen, and then I saw him on the ground, Damar Hamlin on the ground. I never really saw until the replay that he had stood up and fell back down to the ground. So when I saw that, I immediately was just assuming um, a headshot, right? Head to head contact. But then when they said that they had to start administering a CPR on the field, I knew this was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I dropped a little nugget on Big Game Sports Buzz on Games Peter Perspective the other day about about what happens, on the field when you see injuries and other things go on. But that was like nothing I'd ever seen before in my life, and it was hard for me to grasp. And then the severity of it, like I said, for CPR to start being administered, I knew something was wrong, and I had a sick feeling in my gut, man.
And there was no doubt that looking back on it, Zach Taylor goes over and talks to Sean McDermott, the players. You saw Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. And of all the things, I mean, and of course, now, of course, we hear the great news here on Friday night. Of course, DeMar's doing great. So many blessings answered. But I think one of the things we take away from this, and maybe you could speak to this, James, is the NFL community overall and how those players and coaches came together. And, real life is going to happen. We can't always forecast or be ready for everything. Sometimes, as parents, of course, you and I both know that we're going to have to take things as they come and kind of think on our feet on the fly. But it was great to see the entire NFL community come together on this. And I think it went exactly as it should have.
Yeah, it was great to see that brotherhood. And that's the one good thing about it, and one thing I miss a lot when I talk about it. The game comes and goes, and at some time in your life, you're too old to play the game of football. But at the same time, you never outgrow that brotherhood and that friendship, those friendships and those relationships. So it was never a question. It was great to see, but I never really would have questioned if the guys were going to rally around him. And I really believe that's why the NFL ended up doing the right things, because the guys from both sidelines made a decision that this was bigger than the football game itself. That Damar Hamlin's safety and well being was the number one thing, and they weren't going to jeopardize that for anything else.
There is so much going on out there. It's a gladiator sport. I don't have to tell you, my friend. I know you know better than I'll ever know. But it's so good to know that procedures are in place and we do these things in this way, because at the end of the day, there are so many more things that are more important than what's going on this field. Even though a lot of us like to say it's nothing else is more important. No, at the end of the day, being a human is more important, and of course life is more important. But James, let me ask you, what were your thoughts today, because it was a precedent was set the way the NFL owners came together and voted for this postseason. Was this step that the NFL took as far as a coin flip possibly to decide where the Ravens or the Bengals could be the host of that playoff game, or the fact that a neutral site will be in play for the AFC Championship game? Was this the best outcome we could have hoped for?
Ray, with everything being out of the ordinary, I think there's no way to please everybody when you come to this situation, right? Um, People work, they want home field advantage. Some people they want to buy. Um, as a game short, the way the schedule is, the way TV contracts are, really couldn't make it up, couldn't get things done. Um, I think it's as fair as it's gonna get, and I think that you have to accept it, because at the end of the day, if you're the better team, you're gonna win if you're supposed to win. Let's not have the variables where we want to blame it on other things. Let's just go ahead and hang our hats high, like, hey, look, this is what it is. What it is. We have to accept it. We got to go out and make the most of it, and let's get it done.
Now, one of the reasons why everything you do, brother, you lock it down, and I am so appreciative of the fact that you get to share it with me, but I get to see it there on the Big Game Sports Buzz, which, by the way, guys and girls out there right now, if you're not already following the Big Game Sports Buzz, lock it in, because, James, your insights and intakes, I mean, even if I didn't realize or hadn't been there when you played for the Buccaneers from 98 through 2001, I would totally not know how this knowledge you bring forward as you lock it in. The Buccaneers beat the Panthers last week to lock in the NFC South. But this week we go out there, we go to Atlanta, go to hot Atlanta against those Dirty Birds. And the Bucs are already slated. They're number 4. They're the 4th seed. They're going to host one game. But what's the difference between, you think, for the Buccaneers to finish 8-9 or 9-8 here in the 2022 season?
I think it's just a mental thing, right? I think you finish below 500 in this weird 17 game schedule. That's what really drives me crazy. But I just think it's a matter of confidence. They're rolling high right now, winning the games they needed to win, secure the NFC South to get in. And I think at the end of the day, you really just want to get yourself in the playoffs with a winning record. So I think that's going to play into it. And also, I kicked the question around: do the Buccaneers need to rest star players?
And you said you were working on a Tom Brady chop up tonight. I can't wait to see it. But I mean, part of us 2020, 2021, I think part of the deal when Tom Brady came to this team as a free agent was I'm going to have some say in, how I do. And I'm going to work with Coach Arians and Coach Leftwich, but I'm going to have some say in this offense. But here in 2022 now, getting ready for these playoffs, part of me, I get maybe he wants to dress. Maybe you let him go through the motions. I hear now Ryan Jensen's not going to play on Sunday. Probably best we can hope for is he'll be ready there for week one in the playoffs. But why do you think, James Canada, Tom Brady should or shouldn't play this week? And if it is play, how much do you think he should?
Ray, I kicked this thing around, man, and I laughed because I was like, the way the Buccaneers have played all season, they don't need to rest anybody. They need to play as many starters as they can to keep working to get together, get on the same page because of the injuries we had throughout the whole season. We haven't had a consistent team together, I believe, for a big part of the season. So jokingly, I said that, and I don't even know if I said jokingly, I said everyone needs to play. No one needs to take a break. Now, that being said, Tom being older, Tom may need to rest. Realistically, I know there's nothing that's going to change the outcome. I may be treated like a old school preseason game. Get him in for a half, try to establish a lead, and get him out, and make sure that he's healthy um, going into the playoffs. Because this is the one thing I know: if one of our linemen or anyone else has to rest, then you can't play your starting quarterback behind backups on the offensive line. So that's really what it comes down to. So if Tristan Wirfs needs to rest and can't play, then Tom Brady doesn't need to play.
And I don't know about Tristan Wirfs, but I know Donovan Smith is out for this week. Now, of course, left tackle, but of course, the Bucs have been kind of doing that whole mix and match thing along the offensive line the entire season. I think I've come around, my friend. I do believe you're right. I mean, this team won the South because they played gritty. I still think our bread is buttered on the defensive side of the ball, and then bury the lead. We also have a phenomenal offense. I think opposing defenses haven't even got to know what Tom Brady, given a little time in the pocket with a Mike Evans, a Chris Godwin, a Julio Jones, a Russell Gage. Maybe, Kate Otten, the tight end, learned his lesson when he didn't run to the open field there. So maybe going into the postseason, maybe you're right. Maybe the Buccaneers getting more playing time than not this Sunday. Continue to get that gritty attitude going as they get ready for the playoffs. But let me ask you this, because being a former defensive lineman yourself, you'll have respect for this. Tell me about the job that Anthony Nelson's doing along that defensive line. The former Iowa Hawkeye, 5.5 sacks, second on the team in 2022, but 2 strip sacks 2 weekends in a row. He made the big play against Sam Darnold there against last week. What do you think about what Anthony Nelson's doing along this defensive line?
He has a great number too.
Yeah, he does,
Uh,
doesn't he, brother?
no, in all honesty, I mean we've needed someone else to step up since Shaq Barrett went out, got hurt. Um, and Anthony Nelson's answered the call. He's done what he needs to do every week. He comes in, he punches the clock, he goes to work. I've never heard the guy complain. You never read anything where he's, is unhappy, displeasure about anything. He just comes and he plays football, and that's all you can ask for. Be ready when your number's called, and he's done that, and he's stepped up big time. He's making plays, and I love the way he plays the game. He plays relentless football. He plays hard. He doesn't stop, and he's all over the place.
Sounds like a number 98 in my heart, my friend, doesn't it? Now playing on defensive line for those Buccaneers. Now the Falcons guard, they draft Chris Lindstrom last week here in the first round, and he's playing interior. He plays in the guard position for those Falcons, and of course, one of the key matchups this weekend will be an Akeem Hicks against the Chris Lindstrom. Do you think the Buccaneers defensive line, because the Falcons are averaging 159 yards a game this season? Of course, they went to a rush-heavy offense. But now you got the Ritter, the quarterback, the rookie out of Cincinnati, their quarterback. But do you think that matchup with Akeem Hicks versus a Chris Lindstrom this week, the Buccaneers can expose that defense? And then does that also play into the Bucs' hands getting ready for the playoffs to continue showing how dominant they are against the rush?
I think it plays big time. We know Akeem Hicks when he's healthy and what he can do is amazing. He looked a little bit more like himself, against Carolina, coming off of the injuries that he's sustained this year with the foot, and that's hard. As a defensive lineman, I need my get off, I need my push. If I got a blown tire, we used to call it back in the day. If I have a blown tire, it's gonna make it hard for me to get off the ball and dominate and do the things I do. And Hicks is starting to get he got some more air pressure in those tires and getting off the ball again.
That duo, because of course I Vita Vea I heard is not playing this week, but I could be wrong on that. I think maybe he's questionable at the 11th
Okay.
hour. But yeah, that duo of Hicks and Vea in the middle there is going to be important against the rush here in the postseason here this season. But can I talk to you a little bit about the college football and this national championship game? Or
Oh yeah.
I know you went to the Cotton Bowl last week. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was a phenomenal game. Of course, the Baylor Bears had a pretty good game, didn't they?
Man, it was a great game watching USC and Tulane get after it.
Tulane, I'm sorry, my
Yeah,
bad.
and it's I really my wife's a Southern California girl, so we got tickets to go cheer on her Trojans, and lo and behold, we thought we were gonna beat the crowd, and at 4 minutes we decided to go when they had the 15-point lead, we decided to go ahead and start making our way back to the car, and lo and behold, we finished watching the game out in the parking lot on the jumbotron at AT&T Stadium because of the comeback. Um, it just says a lot about, a lot of people say there's too many bowl games and the bowl games are saturated. But to see a team like Tulane have an 11-2 season, I think they should probably the best season in school history, the biggest bowl game that this team has ever played, the school has ever played in, to really have the fight and to not quit and keep playing was amazing. And I say that atmosphere, Ray, was electric, man. It was loud. It was half Trojans, half Green Wave. It was nuts in there, man. It was a really good time, and like I said, just that whole atmosphere itself and the electricity on the field was amazing, man.
And I tell you what, a former Buccaneer that you played with, Mr. Sean King, of course, graduate of Tulane University. I
Yeah.
heard he was pretty excited about that game too. If you had a chance to reach out or message him or talk to him at all about that.
I have not hit Sean up about that. That's something I probably need to do. And just tell him congratulations because, we all have that school. Well, most of us have that school pride. So whenever our teams are playing, I remember back in the day, we all used to. There's a wardrobe bet or something. We always had something going on if our squads ever played each other. And hats off to Sean King and Tulane for that victory they had.
And I'm glad you said that because with name, image, and likeness in 2022, and a lot of players, of course, these days, like coaches are jumping teams before the season's even over. And of course, a lot of people say, why should these players be possibly playing games that they could hurt themselves? And I mean, at the end of the day, though, I got a chance to go. Peter Blake and I got a credential for the ReliaQuest Bowl there, and Mississippi State pulled out that big victory at the end there against the Fighting Illini. But you don't even, of course, and your wife had ties to USC, but you don't even have to really be directly an alumnus or tied to a school to get into the excitement of a bowl game. The bands, the kids, they remind us of when we were younger. It's pretty good stuff, isn't it?
Ray is great, and I talked about this with a friend of mine, and he told me he wanted me to talk about it on one of the podcasts. But back in the day when I was in college, that's what we played for. It wasn't no college playoffs then. It was like if you were unranked, you got matched up in a bowl game, maybe with someone else, and that's what they call the national championship. So, and it's 44 bowl games now. Back then, it may have been 20. If not less than that. And so, when I was in the Big West, which is, now they're in the Mountain, well, now they're the Mountain West, but they only took they only took the conference champion. Everyone didn't get a chance to go play in a bowl game. So season start and training camp, number one goal was winning your conference to go to a bowl game. And so that was like the pinnacle. That was the mecca, the mountaintop, just to make it to a bowl game. And I was blessed to be able to play in two of them when I was in college. But I think a lot of time these younger guys don't even really understand how special it used to be to play in a bowl game because there's so many now. Like I heard someone joking about what's the Gasparilla Bowl, and I'm laughing because I know about Gasparilla simply because I spent time in Tampa, right? But there's so many different bowl games that go on. A lot of people don't even value the experience anymore like they used to.
But you and I remember, and of course, I'm joined by Big Game James Canada from the Big Game Sports Buzz, and of course, Chop Shop, former Buccaneer, former Indianapolis Colt. So you played a lot more football than I did, my friend. But we kind of remember at least a season in high school or a season in college, or you and I've talked about that before, getting to that bowl game. But you know, these kids, they work so hard. They put in so much time and effort, and they deserve to be rewarded. And maybe we can continue, even though we've got name, image, and likeness, and maybe these bowl games start to take on a little bit of a different type of a angle or an aura. Maybe we can continue to really, at the end of the day, let's remember what it's all about. And it's rewarding these kids for the work that they do all year to be ready to do this. And they get a little, it's supposed to be a little bit of a vacation. Let's try to remember to let these, not vacation, because of course for you, my friend, out of Nevada, it was all business. But at the end of the day, take it all in and enjoy it, because it's all about the journey as much as it is destination, isn't it?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You got to be able to take it in, appreciate it, and I talked about it, Ray, and this to me is one of my best pieces that I've done so far. I did one um, about the transfer portal and opting out, and I titled it "Is Opting Out Killing College Bowl Games?" And you look at so many guys that you want to see play as a fan, and then they're opting out not to play. And yes, I know it's a business decision, but back in the day, all everyone took the field. It was still a business decision. Then you played to improve your draft stock. So, I think there's two ways to look about it. To go about it, and you're not going to change everyone's mind because as soon as money gets into play and agents have something to say about it and they think it might affect their bottom line, their dollar, they're going to talk kids out of playing bowl games. And I just think they're being misled in the fact that some guys that are opting out. Like 2 years ago at Nevada, they had 8 guys opt out of playing in the bowl game. Then they had another 15 guys transfer. And then here it is, you opting out, and then some of the guys not even get drafted. It's just like you may have improved your chance of being drafted if you would have played in that bowl game. So,
Wow.
you really gotta sit down, talk with somebody, and weigh the good and the bad of what your options are. Now, if I'm a guaranteed top 5 pick and I'm playing in the Meineke Car Care Bowl, I might decide to chill out. But if
Yes.
I'm like, you look at a Bryce Young, he took the field at the Sugar Bowl because he said he had unfinished business. And that's, I can tip my hat and say that I admire him for making that decision. Can't hear you. Ray, you're muted. Hey, Ray, you were muted, so I didn't hear anything you asked me. Now I can hear you.
I'm sorry, James. What'd you say on that one, my friend?
You were muted, so whatever you said, I didn't hear any of it.
Oh, okay. So thank you so much, brother. So that 3-3-5 defense that TCU runs, of course, we've
Yeah,
seen
that
what they've done this season. And of course, with the Sonny Dykes offense, of course, former Texas or former air raid under Mike Leach, who we lost in December, former coach of Mississippi State. But that 3-3-5 defense stymied Michigan. But something tells me if Coach Harbaugh could have that game again, they'd call a different offense, because Michigan wasn't really out of it. They seem to take themselves out of it. But is that TCU defense, that 3-3-5 alignment they run, is that enough to give Georgia fits, or is Georgia going to go on to get their second consecutive championship, you think?
I'm so in the air right now about what's going to happen with this game. Going into the Ohio State game, I thought Georgia was one of the most dominant defenses in the country, and it looks like they left the defense in Athens, Georgia, right? Um, I'll be the first to admit that I was pulling for TCU. Just I love an underdog story, but I never thought that they would have enough to muster a win against Michigan. Michigan tried to figure things out, but they got behind early. You can't spot a good offense that kind of lead, and TCU's offense is a lot better than people think. The 3-3-5 is really predicated on stunts, blitzes, and confusing you of where the pressure's coming from. And they kind of got a feast or famine mentality. Like either the blitz is going to be a home run and make a big play in the backfield, or they're going to give up a big play. but they waver on being a bend but don't break type of defense, and it's been working for them. And the this team being able to come back the amount of times they have this year, they don't waver, they don't panic, they don't get flustered. They believe in Max Duggan, their quarterback. They believe in the system. It's are they going to the question everybody's going to ask going into Monday night? Can TCU go into the stadium and be giant killers? And it's hard for me to say no because I already said, oh, they're going to get beat by Michigan, and sure enough, here they are.
So I'm all over the place on this, but you know me, James. I go whatever bounces in my head. Of course, I'm joined again by Big Game James Canada from the Big Game Sports Buzz and the Chop Shop. Um, Rondé Barber, he's one of those 15 modern-day finalists for the Hall of Fame this season. And, of course, you played with Rondé. Does Rondé belong in the Hall of Fame, and why should he be in there this year and get in here in the Hall of Fame in 2023?
I mean, it's hard for me to say Rondé doesn't deserve to get in. His resume speaks for itself. Just as a man and a person, not even talking about what he did for the game of football. He's an amazing person. He's an amazing teammate. To have the longevity that he did, to be able to do it at the corner position and then transition over to the safety position a little bit later on in his career when the wheels weren't as speedy. Not the biggest guy in the world, but still did everything he needed to do to help that defense flourish. I think for sure he needs to get in that game.
And people forget, I got into a debate tonight because, okay, Darrell Revis Island, he's one of the other 15 finalists. I'm not going to, that cat was a phenomenal player, but
Right.
people forget, not only did Rondé lock it down as a cornerback, but then he moves to safety. And, of course, and that was the longevity of that career and what he meant for this Tampa Bay defense. And tell me, James, you had Warren up front. You had DB behind you. You had John Lynch in the secondary. But could the Tampa 2 have been that true Tampa 2 without Rondé Barber there in the secondary as well?
No, it's not the same. That's a pivotal piece of that puzzle. Rondé fit that in. He did it as well as anyone else. He knew how to disguise the blitzes. When Monty used to like to do that cornerback blitz, that when we ran that bonsai, and he did a lot of things very, very well. And it's not the same. That's just to say, I always say Donnie Abraham doesn't get enough credit either, being on the other side, doing what they did. You really couldn't pick a cornerback to isolate and pick on because of what we had, and even when Brian Kelly came in as a nickel. But Rondé Barber, man, I'll always say this. You have to look at not just the numbers, but also look at the mentality and the energy that they brought to the field with everyone else around them. And Rondé was infectious with how he played the game. And
You
that's hard to duplicate.
Now, you were one of those dogs up front, my friend, but you're in the huddle. It's 1999. It's 2000. You guys are down. You got holding on to a 3-point lead late, and the offense is moving on you, or maybe they're having modicum of success. You're in the huddle there, James, just as you were. You're looking around. If you have to close your eyes for a minute, please feel free. But explain to me what was going on in that huddle with the defense you were playing on there with our Buccaneers.
Man, Ray, I tell everybody it's hard to be a young player coming into the NFL, not really knowing what to expect, and to have the amount of stars around you. And I say stars, I mean, yeah, at the time they weren't Hall of Famers, but I stopped to think and look around that huddle, all the people I had around me. I was just like, we can't lose. You can't lose. I got Warren Sapp right here. I got Derek Brooks behind me. At one time, Hardy Nickerson and Derek Brooks in the same huddle. Then you got
Wow.
a Rondé Barber and a John Lynch in the secondary. And then a couple years later, you add a Simeon Rice to. I mean, it's just like, wow. It's but that first year with that group we had, I'll tell everybody I was in awe. And here it is, you go in the meeting room and it's hard not to be like, because here it is, it's a position I played and someone that you try to, pattern your game after, is sitting right in the same room with you. And like, what up,
Hey,
Brooks?
no, I'm sorry, brother. No, I was gonna say, take it from somebody who was there and never missed a beat. I knew when James Cannon was on the field too, brother. You were part of that rock solid defense, and that's why I always tell you it's always been an honor to be a friend of yours and get a chance to talk to you. But let me go ahead and transition this to our 2022 Buccaneers. What do we need to see the Buccaneers still continue to get a little bit better at as they go into the playoffs? Maybe we can see it this week against those Falcons, but Where do we need to improve, either on the defense and on the offense? Start with the defense first, but on the defense and the offensive side of the ball, so we can get ready for this postseason, this second season.
Ray, I hate sounding cliche, but honestly, consistency. Because at some point, sometimes this year, even the first half of the Cincinnati Bengals game, the defense looked great. The offense came out with the fast tempo and looked amazing. Cincinnati made adjustments, 4 straight turnovers on offense, and then the defense was just on the field too long, and you start giving up points. Um, the games that we've won, we've been we've had a little bit more consistency. At one point in time this year, 3 of the 4 starters in the secondary were out. Um, at one point in time, Devin White disappeared, right? So it's just consistency, and it's so simple. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, we need to do this and we need to do that, and we need to fire the coaches. We need to do this." But at the same time, when this team at the beginning of the year, when Tom Brady announced he was coming back, every Buccaneer fan was going crazy and said we had everything we needed. So here it is. And I asked this question to some people the other day. Why was it 2 years ago our offensive coordinator we thought should be a head coach somewhere, and now we want to get rid of him, right? Um, it's hard in the NFL to do things when you think you're going to have certain people on the field to do it, and they're out hurt, right? So you got to pivot and make changes, but it's easy for me to tell you the changes you need to make sitting on the couch looking at the game, opposed to knowing what's going on in that meeting room, what practice looked like that week, who did or didn't get it, who couldn't still practice, but they're dressing today because we absolutely have to have them. It changes a lot of different things, and you know, the one word, like I said, if both sides of the ball can be consistent, because even people don't want to say it, and I said it on my podcast, right? I'll say it again. Like I said, I was working on a piece that I'm about to record here in a few minutes. Tom Brady, for the first time in certain situations, has looked old. He's not looked old up until this season, right?
Yes.
So at some point in time, we in the locker room we always say Father Time was undefeated. He's never going to lose. It takes, and so people go, well, we're going to get in the playoffs and we're going to just, we're going to have our second season. We're going to come back. We have got to get in healthy. Brady can't do it by himself. We have to establish a quick passing game because the line won't hold up to block any better in the playoffs if they couldn't do it during the regular season, right? And we
Right.
have to try to establish some kind of running game. And early that first game against Dallas, when Leonard Fournette went for over 100 yards, I was like, okay, we figured it out. We're going to be able to do this and incorporate some play action pass. Tom Brady will be great with that, with the quick throws. And it hasn't happened. So we've got to get, and that's why I wanted guys to play on Sunday. I want some kind of momentum going into the playoffs of building that consistency, that camaraderie, that teamwork, so they can make good things happen.
I hear you what you're saying. You're telling, and that's why again, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm always honest with you, but I didn't buy into it until I heard you tonight say that, and it's like probably our best because everybody's like, well, Ryan Jensen's in a 21-day window, and Ryan Jensen may not even go to center. Hainsey's been locking it down there all season. Jensen may come in and either be a starter at guard or be a depth piece or rotate with a Hainsey, and Hainsey rotates out. But
Right.
really, now that's the reason why I've come on board with what you're saying is that if the Buccaneers are going to have success in this postseason, they just maybe got to stay gritty. And so here I've been saying all week, sit Tom, get Blaine in there, maybe dress Kyle Trask, and maybe they do go Tom first half, Blaine Gabbert, and then Trask gets in for like a drive. But I do agree probably that the Buccaneers are going to have to stay gritty and continue learning on the fly because what were you thinking against those Bengals when the Bucs in that first half, they were world beaters, and in the second half, they came out flattered in a pancake. What were your thoughts on that game?
Man, I was dumbfounded. Honestly, I was like, oh man, good. We're on fire. We're looking good. It's I was like, okay, we got this. We got something working. We figured it out. And then when we came out and I was like, oh, turnover. Sorry, we'll get it straightened up. And the turnovers just kept happening. And you could just see the look on the guys' faces like they had the I'm in trouble look, like that, uh-oh. And once I saw that, I was like, they're not gonna bounce back from this. And um I give the Bengals credit though for the team that they are. They got better as the season went on, and Joe Burrow really believes in himself. And once he got things rolling, and that defense got those stops, it was no stopping Cincinnati the rest of that night. But those are the things that if we don't turn the ball over and 4 consecutive turnovers that they were able to
Oh,
capitalize on,
yes.
it changes that game, and I think it actually changes the mentality and mindset, for the rest of the season. But we did what we needed to do with the win against Carolina, and we can still, we control our destiny. Although I just don't think it's going to be as easy as people think it's going to be.
We mean when you say easy, as they think it's going to be week 18 or in the postseason for those Bucks?
Postseason, I mean, right? Postseason.
Yeah, no, I
I
got you.
mean, I've seen so many Buccaneer fans, and when sometimes I write my pieces and I post it to all the Buccaneer fan pages. I've heard, "Oh my God, big game! I can't believe you're giving up. You're quitting your family. You don't believe." And I was like, "That's not the point. Like, listen to what I said in depth. Read the caption that I wrote. It has nothing to do with belief. It has you know, Coach Dungy taught me you become what you repeatedly do. If things keep going bad, they end up bad. Like you've got to learn to change the performance to get the outcome that you want to get, right? And if not, you're not going to have the success you want to have. So a lot of people think, oh, Tom Brady's magic in the postseason. He's done this, he's done this. Like I said a few minutes ago, right? This is not the same quarterback that we had 2 years ago that won the Super Bowl. It's not the same quarterback that led the comeback just to lose by a botch cover zero defense last year against the Rams. He's a little bit older. He's had a lot more things in his life go on. Things outside the field affect you as a person because we're still humans. Although we may be superhuman athletically, we still have a heart. It still beats. Things still bother us. So, a lot of people are like, oh, we're going to get in the playoffs and it's on. And yeah, I say that to Jay Stoggs all the time. Like, boy, Dallas don't want to see us. Deep down, I know that we have to go and play a much more consistent game. And we can beat the Dallas Cowboys in the first round. Yes, we can, but we have to play a certain way, and we can't come out slow like we have so many times this season.
I'll tell you what, though. You talk about Jay Stoggs, of course. Jay Stoggs is co-host of the Chop Shop there with you. Uh, I love Jay. And I love the grief you give him about the Bucks. Of course, we beat the Cowboys in opening night 2020, and then 2021. We beat them opening night this season. But don't you talk about and you don't you just think, James, that maybe Dak Prescott's going to get a little hot because every time we thought Dak was going to step up and get hot, he's had some issues, or of course, he had the injury last season, but he's probably due. And if the Buccaneers are playing those Cowboys in the first week of the postseason, it's going to take a pretty solid effort to keep those Cowboys in check, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder like they have something to prove. And that's fine. They can do that. But at the same time, the way Dak Prescott is playing with his inconsistency, with a healthy secondary, and if we can get some pass rush on them, I like our chances of stopping Dallas from throwing the ball. Dallas does well when they run the ball, not to just bypass this Falcons game. But truth be told, this game Sunday it's all but done. We know what we have going into the playoffs, and more than likely it's going to be Dallas unless Philly just comes out and totally lays an egg against. Is it the Giants they have? Yeah, against the Giants, which said they're going to rest everybody. Um, that's a crazy situation there, but at the same time, um, my grandfather always told me only worry about what you can control, and so the Buccaneers going to worry about what they can control, and all that they can control is their effort in this game Sunday and how they carry that over to the playoffs the following week.
Do you think the Giants Of course, the Eagles laid down 2 years ago, and the Giants probably should have won the NFC. At the time, it was the NFC least. The Eagles actually pulled, Doug Peterson, who was the coach of the Eagles at the time. Of course, now he's the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He pulls out all of his starters. They basically laid down. Washington wins that game, makes the postseason. Do you think, we're just going around the NFL here, do you think Brian Daboll is just too good of a coach? He's going to rest those starters. And, of course, that we know Saquon's not going to be playing this week. Or do you think he's also going to let those players actually get a shot at trying to give those Eagles a game? Because the Eagles themselves, with a possible injury shoulder to Jalen Hurts and maybe not a whole lot to lose or gain or be clock watching, maybe themselves can be caught up? Or do you think Daboll's just going to keep, like you said, keep those Cowboys off the field and just be like, all right, let's save it for that second season?
Well, supposedly Saquon's not playing. Daniel Jones isn't playing. some of his other defensive guys are playing, but I heard they're resting a lot of guys. Um, I think for them, the way the Giants have played all year, they need people healthy and they have nothing to lose, right? So, but I think they want to be at full strength when they get that playoff game. So I think they're going to play. But I tell people, don't sleep. Tyrod Taylor is a capable quarterback. He can go in and
Yes.
he
Yes.
can lead them to a victory against Philadelphia. Minshew Mania fell off the wagon a little bit last week against
Yes.
New Orleans, to where
Yes.
now you feel like you got to rush your quarterback back. Or the Lane Johnson, the offensive tackle's out. They need him for the playoffs. They're only as good as they're only going to succeed if he's playing. Um, do you play Jalen and he's out? He has the
Yes.
abdomen tear. Man, it's like I said, I know what we have in our team, and I know what we need to work on. Some of these other teams, like they're going to go into the playoffs scared. That's why I just want us to get our consistency going,
Yes.
so we can have that success because we've been there before.
Now, James, you played with the Bucks in the NFC and you played with the Colts in the AFC. Is the AFC the better division this year that you think? I guess it's an easy question to answer, but at the end of the day, do you think that the AFC holds an advantage in going into this postseason, or does the NFC have the workhorses and the teams that could give the AFC a real run for their money?
I think on the outside looking in, especially like on paper, we're just watching it. The AFC would have to be considered the better division out of the two. You know what I'm saying? They play hard. They they got three great teams in Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati. Um, I mean, it's hard to root. It's hard to bet against any of them, any of those three, right? Um, and who knows what the Steelers may do playing for Mike Tomlin. It's just really the NFC. You look at it and say, whatever. Someone's gonna go. They have to. But I mean, if you had to put some money down in Vegas, I bet you everybody's putting their money on the whoever comes out of the AFC to win the Super Bowl.
I just realized something. You were with the Bucks still in 2001 when we had that Monday night collapse against those Colts, weren't you?
No, 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 no. That happened in 2003 when I was gone. And I was
Okay.
gone then. I was out. I was done then. I was like, I
All
wasn't.
right. Because I
Yeah,
wanted to say now, hold on a
that
minute,
was
because
that was a
that
major
was
debacle though.
a parallel to that Cincinnati collapse in the second half. I don't think for the
Yeah.
same reasons, but it felt the same. It kind of tasted the same, didn't it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I just like I said, I remember looking at that game, watching it, and I was like, man, I'm supposed to be there because I was still supposed to be in Indianapolis that year, and got let go because of my contract. But looking at it, I was just like, oh man, Tampa's got this, and I was like, and I'm on the phone with like, man, y'all know Peyton, you can't never underestimate it. That guy's not gonna quit working, and sure enough, slowly but surely, chipped away, chipped away, chipped away, and I knew some people that went to bed and didn't know that the Buccaneers had lost until the next morning.
Well, I got to be honest with you. This is terrible to say, but Monday night I was like watching Josh Allen warm up. I was watching Joe Burrow. I realized how significant of a game this was going to be. I was as stoked as you can be, but it'd been a hard weekend, and I did a Bucks game day coverage, and I also had credentials for the ReliaQuest Bowl on Monday. I
Uh-huh.
was exhausted. I actually fell asleep, and I woke up as they were wrapping up the coverage, and I mean, on one hand, I'm kind of glad I didn't see it live because I saw Joe Theismann's injury live. Not comparing the two, but I remember when
Right.
LT hits Joe Theismann back in the day, and that'll always stick with me. And I can pretty much be sure that for the people, the magnitudes of people, 21 point something million that saw that hit, that saw that play on Monday night. Was the scariest thing about that play, James, the fact that it was such a routine tackle, except for the fact that he took an impact to the chest, but I didn't see anything that made me go, wow, I saw what happened. It was pretty routine, wasn't it?
Yeah, you see people get and not to try to make light of the situation. You see guys get run over a lot, especially with the person on offense moving as fast as they are on their lower shoulder, and normally they bounce right back up, and it's it. That's like I said, I was up there like, well, what happened? I missed it. Like it was crazy. But it wasn't like a scary hit. It wasn't like I'm um the Monday night game with the Colts and the Chargers. The
Yes.
Why am I drawing a blank on this? Derwin James's hit.
Oh, right. Yes.
That looked like a more violent hit
Yes.
than what um DeMar got, right?
Right.
But you don't know the human body. It's crazy, and all it takes is one small thing. Like I was telling somebody in high school, I had a teammate get slung down to the ground. The way the ball landed in his chest almost sent him into cardiac. And he ended up not being able to play football again because it ended up damaging his heart. And it was just a play where he got thrown down and the ball got wedged up underneath his shoulder pads, became in between his shoulder pads and his chest. And next thing you know, he was done playing football forever. And it's
Wow.
just freaky. Like you just never know what's going to happen. But just the amount of support and the way I've seen people come together and be able to reach out and talk to different people about the situation, Ray, was just
Yes.
amazing. And I hate that something like this has to happen
Yes.
for certain things to be done because I mean I had a buddy of mine reach out to me today. He was like, "Man, if they could raise that much money for his charity in 6 days, imagine what we can do with a lot of other problems in the world if we
Yes.
decided to work together and come together." And I was like, "Man, that's truth. That's a lot of truth to what you just said."
That's a great point. That's what I took away from it this week. It wasn't so much that I think that people, we all learned how fragile life can be, not to take it for granted. We also learned that when we all come together, even if it's just those positive vibes and the warm thoughts, it was the medical technicians on the field and the way
Right.
they attended to DeMar so fast. And DeMar being, as a professional athlete, you yourself knowing, having been a professional football player, you're in pretty good shape. You're not the average Joe. So your body's conditioned to take a bit of a more abuse, if you will, than the average Joe. But um, yeah, I think at the end of the day, we come away from this gathering more positive vibes and positive thoughts. And I think I agree with that. You get $7 million for a GoFundMe for that fund, which is fantastic. But
Right.
it was only 2,500 was the goal, right? It ends up to $7 million, and I think that we should all take that away. That when we all come together for a common cause, good things can happen.
Yeah, it's just amazing, man, and I love it. And I just ask that, you know, we carry the momentum into everything. Everything from here on out that we do. Football to me is still the greatest sport in the world and has one of the best fan bases in the world also. Yes, sometimes we can be a little cruel to each other as fans, and sometimes we can be cruel to players uh because of fantasy numbers. But in all actuality and reality, it shows the kind of hearts that people have and that a lot of things can get accomplished if we work together. And I think that's something that, um, the NFL and players need to really try to go out and make a consistent effort to get to work with the community, keep them involved and the fans involved in what's going on in the bigger scale of things.
Yes. Now, first of all, thank your wife for sharing you with me on a Friday night. I appreciate you coming
Mhm.
in here. Before I get you out of here, I hope you and I can get together sometime before the playoff game next week. Playoffs? Yeah, I said playoffs, but we'll get together. So I agree the Buccaneers starter to get the time in this week. But give me your final thoughts here, Mr. James Canada, and also tell everyone where they can find you when they want to catch up with some more of that knowledge you're dropping on the daily.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the Buccaneers are going to be fine going in this week against Atlanta. Um, and maybe not as old school as I am. Play time at least for a half, um, with the right protection in there, and then get him out. Let him sit down. I know he wants to play. But at the end of the day, we as much as I talk about him being older, we're going to need him to succeed in the playoffs. So Todd Bowles, be smart, do what you need to do, and let's get a dub. Y'all can catch me, y'all, on Facebook. It's Big Game Sports Buzz on YouTube. It's BG Entertainment, and it's also Big Game Sports Buzz on there as well. I do a live show every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, and I'm trying to drop my Buccaneers pewter perspective once a week, if not twice a week. Getting ready to come up on the end of the season, so we start covering a little bit draft stuff and what the offseason is going to look like. On Twitter, it's at JCan97 or at BG Sports Buzz. Hit me up. I love interacting with all my fans, and I don't consider y'all fans. I consider you friends. So hit me up so we can talk about this great game of football and Big Game Sports Buzz. We talk about a little bit of everything.
And I got to know, brother, if you and Jay Stoggs, if it is the Cowboys coming to Tampa next week and you and Stoggs got a bet, I got to know what it is. I want in on some of it. All right, my friend?
Sure thing, man. I'll make sure I keep you afloat of what that is.
James Canada, former Buccaneer, former Colt, host of the Big Game Sports Buzz and his Chop Shop. I appreciate you coming in here on a Friday night. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, Ray. I appreciate it.
All right, take care now. I'll tell you what. I know I was on earlier with the over under with Harry the Greek and Peter Blake and of course Andrew Davis, and we even had Big Fat Mike in there. Big Fat Mike. I hate to say that, but I had to talk to James a little bit because I hadn't had a chance to talk to that cat in a week or two. But all the events that happened this week, and of course the Buccaneers victory over Carolina, locking down the NFC South, and then I'm glad I got a chance to ask him, talk to him about that because it's not the first time I've heard the angle about the Buccaneers starters getting a little more playing time, but I kind of understood what Peter Blake, what you were saying, and Harry Berg. I understood that, you know, maybe this team needs to have a little time so they can continue to prove that they're getting right at the right places at the right time for the postseason. But I was like old school mentality. I'm like, get your starters out there for like one play, one drive, get them out. Maybe the Bucks leave them in a little sooner. Of course, knowing the way Tom Brady plays, he probably doesn't want to come out any sooner. Excuse me. Before I let you go, I want to share a couple of stories with you. Nice story today, of course. The Heisman Trophy candidates this year. Of course, you know that the winner was actually the kid from USC, not CJ Stroud. He's Ohio State's quarterback. Caleb Williams was the winner of your Heisman in 2022. But going into last week's game, of course, you had Michigan play, or you had Georgia playing against Ohio State. And of course, Georgia's quarterback is Stetson Bennett, and Ohio State's quarterback is CJ Stroud. Nice story today about how Stetson's mom, Denise, and CJ Stroud's mom, Kim, they got to be good friends while the kids were there in New York for the Heisman Trophy candidate or Heisman Trophy ceremony. And I think sometimes we forget about that fact that these kids are 22, 21, 23, 20, and they get to bring someone or they bring some family and friends with them to New York to be there for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And of course, like I said, Stetson's mom, Denise, was there, and Kim's mom. Hey, Mr. Al McTavish, how are you, my friend? Good. How you doing? No. Mike Allstott's here? I'll be right over, my friend. Excellent. Yeah, Mike Allstott here at the world famous Ferg Sports Bar and Grill on a Friday night down here on 16th Avenue, just below. Wait a minute, I screwed that one up. Let me try it again. The world famous Ferg Sports Bar and Grill out here on Central Avenue, just below 16th Street in the edge, just from St. Petersburg. Had a couple of leagues here. I have my cousin Chris here tonight. He's playing in a big tournament this weekend. It's called the Super Draft Tournament. Some of the best softball players in all of the country. They had a huge draft, and they're playing a tournament this weekend. He plays tomorrow. I think it's at 9-1-4 over here at Meadowlawn. And then, of course, the round robin tournament will have him on Saturday or Sunday playing in the finals. Hopefully, Chris's team makes it. I think he said he's coaching as well. Then we had the Axe tournament, the Axe League out here. And, of course, we had Interstate 75 out here on stage here at World Famous Bird Sports Bar and Grill. Working it back to my story there was that I really like the fact that Denise, who again is Stetson Bennett's mom, and of course Kim, who is CJ Stroud's mom, before the semifinals championship game last weekend, of course Ohio State versus the Horned Frogs. No, I'm sorry, Georgia. I'm screwing this up. They texted each other, "Best of luck to our boys," and of course that continues this week because Max Dugan, quarterback for TCU, now is in the finals against Georgia. And, of course, Georgia's, again, Stetson Bennett's mom, Denise. And they also met. So not only did it happen last week, but, again, this week, Max Dugan and his mom will probably be texting Stetson Bennett's mom, Denise, wishing each other the best of luck. And kind of a sign of social media in 2022 and how things are going. And, one of the ways that, we can all keep in touch with each other, because you guys and girls know how I end every one of these shows. As I'm getting ready to go hang out here at Mike Allstott, I'm going to drop it a little bit below an hour. Everyone needs to know someone cares. This weekend, you be the one who lets them know. Enjoy the Bucks game against the Falcons on Sunday. Enjoy the Monday night game, the championship game between Georgia and TCU. I almost said Tulane again. I hope you all have a great weekend. Please share the show, and I'll talk to you soon here on Cup of Ray